Shalom. Yom Ha'Atzmaut. Yom Ha'Atzmaut this Wednesday night. Thursday we have Yom HaZikaron before that, and then we have Yom Ha'Atzmaut. I don't know if I ever showed you. Did I show you about if you ever get stuck on a desert island and there's just you and the parrot, and you want to know when are the Jewish holidays going to be. So all you need to do is remember what I'm about to teach you. You have to know the Passover has the day of Pesach. That's Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Right, there's the day of Pesach. First day of Pesach, second day of Pesach, third day of Pesach. That each year falls on a different day of the week. Okay, so this year the first day of Pesach fell on Shabbat, Friday night Shabbos. So that is Shabbat. Then the first day Hallel, the day that we had Hallel here in Israel after the frogs before the plant, right? So that was Sunday. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You get the idea, right? Now, I didn't make this up. This is written in the Shulchan Aruch in the section about how to establish a Jewish calendar. It's quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. It comes from the Rishonim. I didn't make it up. There's a form of gematria that's mentioned in the Gemara that's called At-Bash. At-Bash, as some of you know, is you take the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, and you make a shidduch with the last letter. Aleph will marry Taf, At. Bet will marry Shin. So help me out. Gimel is going to marry Reish. Dalet is going to marry Kuf. Very good. Hey is going to marry Tzadi. And Vav is going to marry Pei. Very good. Okay, so that's just, now here comes the part that you need to remember when you're on a desert island and you want to figure out the Jewish calendar. All you need to know is what day of the week was Seder night. If you know that Seder night was on Shabbos, then you can figure everything out. Because the first day of Pesach is Taf, which is going to remind us that Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, is going to fall out on the same day of the week as the first day of Passover. So Tisha B'Av this year is going to be on Friday night Shabbos. Obviously, we're going to push it off one day because we're not going to fast on Shabbos, so we're going to do it on Sunday. Who had eggs on Seder night? Boiled eggs? Why did you have boiled eggs on Seder night? Because the first night of Seder is always going to be the same night of the week as the day of Tisha B'Av. Eggs are a sign of mourning. The Ramah writes that we remind ourselves of that. So that's pretty cool. So you're on your desert island, you want to know, have I got the right day of the week for Tisha B'Av? Yes, if Tisha B'Av falls on the same day of the week as the first day of Pesach, you figured it out right. With me? So Bet is going to be Shin, which is Shavuot. Shavuot is going to fall out this year on a Saturday night. Sunday, we're going to have 2 days. We're going to have Shabbos. And then Motzi Shabbos is going to be Shavuot, cheesecake, staying up learning all night. If you're in Chutz La'aretz, you're going to have
3 days.
You're going to make Aliyah before then, because you're going to have 2 days, right? But you're right, in Chutz La'aretz you're going to have 3 days. We're good? So Bet, the second day of Passover, which this year fell out on a Sunday, is going to be the same day of the week as Shavuot. Reish is Rosh Hashanah, New Year. Rosh Hashanah is going to fall out on the same day as the week as the third day of Pesach, which this year is a Monday. So Rosh Hashanah this year, you're going to have Shabbos, then you're going to have Motzi Shabbos Sunday to cook and prepare for Yom Tov, and then you're going to have Sunday night. Monday is going to be Rosh Hashanah this year. Cool? Good. Yeah, this is good, right? Right? Kuf, this one I think is a bit of a stretch. I don't think it passes the bar of respectable thing, but hey, I didn't make it up. It's in the Shulchan Aruch. Kuf stands for Kriyat HaTorah, reading the Torah, which is the festival of Simchat Torah, but in Chutz La'aretz, outside Israel. Okay? That's Simchat Torah, because this was made up by rabbis who lived in Chutz La'aretz, Rishonim who lived outside the land of Israel. Simchat Torah in the Torah and in Eretz Yisrael is celebrated on Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day of Sukkot. But in Chutz La'aretz it's celebrated on the 9th day. So this year, the 9th day, Simchat Torah, is going to be on Tuesday. That means that in Israel, Simchat Torah is going to be on a Sunday night Monday, and that means the first day of Sukkot is going to be Sunday night Monday. So we're going to have Shabbos. You're going to clean up for Shabbos. Then you're going to quickly build your sukkah and all that. We're going to have Yom Kippur. We haven't got to. Yes, we're going to. Yom Kippur is going to be on Wednesday. So you're going to have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to build your sukkah. We're going to have Shabbos. Then we're going to clean up from Shabbos. Then we're going to cook for Sukkot. Then we're going to have Sukkot Yom Tov. Then we're going to have Chol Moed, Shabbos, Sukkot Yom Tov, Chol Moed, and then Simchat Torah. Okay, but in the Chutz La'aretz they're going to have 2 days at the end. Okay, that one I think is a bit of a stretch. But Tzadi is Tzom Kippur. That's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur this year is going to fall out on Tuesday night, Wednesday. And lastly, Vav is Pei, which is Purim. That is last Purim. It's not a Purim that comes 11 months after Pesach. It's a Purim that comes 30 days before Pesach. Okay? So this year, Purim outside Jerusalem was on a Wednesday night, Thursday. Do you remember that? And obviously in Jerusalem, where we celebrate Purim Monday night, it was a Thursday and Friday. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. And that's really cool. Why am I telling you this? Because we know that Pesach doesn't have 6 days. Pesach has 7 days. So Zion is going to match, which was on a Friday this year, do you remember? The last day of Pesach, Kriyat Yam Suf, the last day of Pesach was on a Thursday night, Friday, and it was immediately followed by Friday night Shabbos, when you could have kidney on and all that stuff, right? Zion is the friend with Ayin. You're already a step ahead of me. That's Atzmaut, Israel Independence Day. And the 5th of Iyar always falls out on the same day as the last day of Pesach, which is the day of splitting of the Red Sea and the Jewish people getting their full independence from Egypt. That was designed that in the heavenly sphere of things that would always fall out the same day of the week as Yom Ha'Atzmaut. The Israeli government, in my opinion, there were 3 incredibly big miracles about the day of Yom Ha'Atzmaut. The first miracle, of course, is that we have an Israeli Independence Day, which is big time miracle in my opinion, right? That's like, we waited 2,000 years for that, big miracle. Now we have 2 little miracles. Miracle number 2 is that Ben Gurion and the first government of the state of Israel decided to celebrate that day based on the Jewish calendar. That is unbelievably, totally crazy. The fact that the Israeli government uses the Jewish calendar for Pesach and Shavuot and Shabbos, they didn't have a choice. But hey, every other country in the whole world uses a secular calendar. To use a Jewish calendar just puts us off balance of everyone. America, the 4th of July, you've got Bastille's Day. Why didn't they do, what was it, the 14th of May or something? Why didn't they use the secular date? Wonder of wonders, miracle of miracles. It's a line from the Gemara or something. Wonders, miracle of miracles. They decide to use the Hebrew date and fixed Yom Ha'atzmaut for what day? The 5th of Iyar. Why? The British mandate finished at midnight on a Friday night. Ben Gurion didn't want to break Shabbos. In the afternoon, before he went to the museum in Tel Aviv, it's now a museum in memory of the Declaration of Independence. Has anyone been there? Yes, you've all got to go there. I cried when they do that. I mean, it's
in a bomb shot.
It's amazing. You've got to go there. It's amazing. And he did that, and he said that at midnight we're going to have a state, and that was Hey Be'iyah. Third miracle is that the government in the course of the state of Israel realized that sometimes that falls out on Shabbos or Friday. If it falls out on Shabbos or Friday, it's going to cause huge desecration of Shabbos, because we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut with the Korban Todah. Everyone has their Thanksgiving offering on the barbecue, and that's going to break Shabbos. Then later they realized that if Yom HaZikaron Israel's memory for the fallen soldiers would fall out on a Saturday night. After they started doing summertime here in Israel, they realized that it starts getting very late at night, and it would mean breaking Shabbos to prepare those ceremonies. So whenever Yom Ha'atzmaut falls on a Friday, Shabbos, or Yom HaZikaron falls on a Shabbos or a Sunday, then they change the date of Yom Ha'atzmaut. They bring it earlier or bring it later, depending on the year. In my opinion, that's also a miracle. The fact that the state of Israel, which if you haven't noticed, it's not run by the rabbis, respects the holiness of the Sabbath day. You would think Friday, great. They would create a new Hebrew expression. They'd say long weekend, right? They would create a long weekend. But they didn't create a long weekend. They said, we're not going to desecrate Shabbos. 3 miracles. That has halachic basis. We do the same thing when Purim falls on Shabbos in Jerusalem. The rabbi said we do not read the Megillah on Shabbos because out of fear that maybe someone will carry the Megillah where there's no Eruv. What are the chances of that? Very unlikely. Nonetheless, out of the holiness of Shabbos, we change the festival of Purim. Also, when the fast fall, we move them. So here too we change. 3 big miracles for Yom Ha'atzmaut. There we go. I think we could teach this in an Asia Torah seminary. I think so, right? Like with the codes and the whole business. I think this is good. You can say this at your barbecue. Just before we move on, I taught this to one of my classes here this week, and one of the students put her hand up and said, Rabbi, I just want to tell you, my family, I know this. Because when my grandmother was a little girl in Europe before the Holocaust, my great-grandfather used to tell her this and say, in the future, the 7th day will have a festival. And please God, you should narrate it. He didn't survive the Holocaust, she did. The story stays in the family. Yes, ma'am.
No, that was a question. Was this created before 70 years ago?
All this is mentioned up to here, is mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. It's done by Rishonim. The Beit Yosef brings it. It's made. You can find it in the 4th volume in the Mishnah Berurah. It's nothing that I made up. It's quite this up to this line here is mainstream normative halachic. Zayin to Yom Ha'atzmaut is just miraculous. That's just you. You want to take a picture? I see. You all have a Chag Sameach. All right, we're going to talk now about saying Hallel on Yom Ha'atzmaut. And I want to start with a story, just so we can put this in perspective. When my wife and I made Aliyah my wife and I made Aliyah some 32 years ago. We were first in America's Plitan, the absorption center, and then we moved out to a small yeshuv. In those days it was small, but Hashem today it's quite big. Just on the outskirts of Hebron, it's called Karmei Tzur. We were family number 19. Today they have more than 100 families, it's quite big. But we were family number 19. The first 18 families were all graduates of the yeshiva in Gush Etzion, Yeshiva Har Zion in the Gush, in Elon Shvut. It comes the first Yom Ha'atzmaut that we're there, and they get up to, in the Yom Ha'atzmaut service, Hallel. And I don't remember if they said full Hallel or half Hallel. They did whatever they did in the Yeshiva in Har Zion, but I do remember that they did not say a bracha on Hallel. They said Hallel without a bracha. And I was very upset. And I quite loudly said my bracha violently so everyone would hear, and I oomphed and humphed and I made it known that I thought this was not acceptable. And after the service, one of the young men there took me aside, and he said, well, what's your problem? I said, listen, what is this? You said Hallel without a bracha? I said, where I come from, even in Australia, I grew up in Australia, my synagogue in Australia, we said Hallel with a bracha. What is this you guys saying Hallel without a bracha? And he put his arm around me, he said, could you just help me here? Tell me, who's more Zionist? Your synagogue in Australia that's saying Hallel with a bracha? Or us 19 families on a hilltop overlooking Hebron who are actually who landed Israel and saying Hallel without a bracha? And it didn't take me long to realize that he had a point. That maybe a person's Zionism, and maybe even a person's connection to thanking the good Lord, is not connected on whether you say Hallel with a bracha or without a bracha, and that might not be a good indication of exactly how you feel about Yom Ha'Atzmaut. So we're going to learn about Yom Ha'Atzmaut, we're going to learn about saying Hallel, but I want to stay very clear from the very beginning. We're going to see several different opinions. The opinion I'm going to teach you is the opinion that I follow my rabbis, which is that one should say Hallel with the bracha. But we're going to see their opinions that say you should say Hallel without a bracha. And there are some people who say that you shouldn't say Hallel as Hallel in the synagogue service. That's not the measure of a person's connection to Yom Ha'Atzmaut and a person's connection to thanking the good Lord for the state of Israel. That is expressed first and foremost by everyone in Israel who you've actually made a huge effort to base your lives here in Israel. It doesn't get much better than that, ladies. I just need to read what we've said. Okay. All right, so let's go. First, we're going to start by saying that it's not so simple not to say Hallel if we're supposed to, and it's not so simple to say Hallel if we're not supposed to. In other words, we really have a little bit of a no-win situation. That is, you can't just say, oh, we'll be strict and say Hallel, or we'll be strict and not say Hallel. Look in source number 1. There's a Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin. The Gemara says as follows. There's a verse in the book of Yeshayahu that says like this: L'marbeh hamisra u'leshalom ein kates v'gonim. There's a verse that talks about a description of apparently the Messiah, and it talks about that the messianic task will be given to someone who has an increase in their governmentship, marbeh misra, and unending peace. Now, if you open up the Tanakh in the book of Yeshayahu, chapter 9, you look at that verse, I think it's verse 7, somewhere around there, in the beginning of the chapter, you'll notice a very interesting thing. The mem of Lemarbeh is printed as a mem sofi. It's the only place in the Tanakh where we have a mem sofi in the middle of a word. We know that mem sofi that's why it's mem sofi, because it's only a closed mem at the end of the word. And this is quite unique why it's like that. Of course, when I copied it from my computer program, it is not smart enough to know that it's supposed to have a mem sofi there, and it automatically corrects it to an open mem. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Tanchum, Derash Bar Kapara, Betzipori. Why is every mem that's in the middle of a word open? But this mem in this word is a mem sofi. It's a closed mem. Mem satum, that is, it doesn't have an opening in it. Answer: Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'asot Chizkiyahu Mashiach. God wanted to make King Chizkiyahu the Messiah. He thought, you're my man. The Sancherev Gog Magog, and the war between Chizkiyahu and Sancherev, the war at that time would have been considered as the war of Gog and Magog. Chizkiyahu would be Mashiach. The end of days would have come and everything would have been fine. We know that did not happen. Amram Midat Adin, said the accusing angel, Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, Ma David HaMelech Yisrael, Shama Kama Shirot V'Tishpachot Lefanecha. What about King David, King of Israel, who said many praises and songs in front of you? Lo Asita Mashiach, you didn't make him the Messiah. Chizkiyahu, She'asita Lo Kol Nisim Alalu. Chizkiyahu, you did all these miracles for, and you made him victorious in battle, and you did all these wonderful things. V'lo Ba Shira Lefanecha. He did not say a song of praise to you. Ta'aseu Mashiach, you're going to make him the Messiah? L'chach nistamama. And that's why that mem is closed up. Instead of the mem being open to sing the praises of God, he closed it up. He didn't say God's praises when he was supposed to, and he and the whole Jewish people missed out on him being the Messiah, which is pretty drastic. In other words, if you're actually supposed to sing the praises of God and say thank you and Shirot V'Tishpachot, and you don't do it, it's terrible. So that seems to be like, even if I'm in doubt, hey, state of Israel, 2,000 years of Galut, come back to the land, seems pretty clear that the Shir's over, let's sing. But there's source number 2. In source number 2, we have a Gemara in the Masechet Shabbat on page 118. The Gemara says, there was a rabbi who said, HaKoreh Hallel b'kol yom, harei zeh mecharef u'mekadef. Someone who reads Hallel every day, behold, that is someone who is belittling and is insulting and cursing God. That's someone who is doing a very non-religious act. What could be the problem with singing Hallel every day? Yes?
It's like a zilzul.
That's right, it's a belittling of it. If every single day you say all of Hallel, then what you're basically saying is that God's miracles are not miraculous because I say Hallel every day. You're just belittling the whole thing. It becomes a bit worthless all the time. Doesn't mean anything. So if we're not supposed to be saying it, then it's a problem to be saying it. So we're really in a non-win situation. If we just said, okay, well, let's hedge our bets, I don't know what we're supposed to do. If we're supposed to hedge our bets, are we supposed to hedge our bets and say it, and hedge our bets and not say it? So let's go and see, is there a place for saying Hallel on wondrous things that happen to the Jewish people? Now you've got to realize that we live in a generation without a Sanhedrin. If there was a Sanhedrin in our generation, this question would go to the Sanhedrin and they would have the power to enact new rabbinic decrees. We have rabbinic decrees of saying Hallel. Does anyone know any rabbinic decrees of where we say Hallel? Hanukkah. Hanukkah is not written in the Torah. The rabbis at that time, the Sanhedrin at the time, got together and decreed Hallel. So if we had a Sanhedrin today, they would get together and they would declare Hallel or not, one way or the other. But we don't have a Sanhedrin. So is there sources that we can rely upon that can teach us one way or the other? So let's start in source 3. There's a Gemara Masechet Pesachim that says as follows. It says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Shir shebetorah, Moshe v'Yisrael amru b'shah she'alu mi'el. The song in the Torah, that is Shirat Yam, that we sang on the 7th day of Pesach, Moses and the Jewish people said it at the time that they came out of the sea. Hallel zeh mi'amro. Hallel that we say, who wrote that? Where's that from? Answer, Nevi'im shebenehem tiknu lehem Yisrael. The prophets in the Jewish people fixed that for the Jewish people. Shiyu omrim oto al kol perek v'perek, that they should say it on each event, v'al kol tzara v'tzara, on each tzara, each painful event. We have to understand what that means in a minute. Shalot tavo aleim, that shouldn't occur to them. Ulikshegil nigalin omrim oto al gulatam. And when they're redeemed, they say it on the redemption. Rashi in source 4 explains, al kol tzara shalot tavo aleim, on any pain that shouldn't happen to them. Lishna ma'ali yochinakat. The Gemara wanted to use a nice language. They wanted to use a polite language. Klomar she'im chas v'shalom tavot tzara aleim. It means to say that if, God forbid, a terrible thing should happen to the Jewish people, v'yoshio mimenu, and God saved us from it, omrim oto aglotam. Then they say Hallel on their Savior. Kagon Chanukah, for example, Chanukah. So this is quite an amazing source. This source says very clearly that Hallel was instituted by the prophets for the Jewish people to say whenever they're saved from a catastrophe. On every catastrophe that occurs and the Jewish people are saved from it, they say Hallel. Well, that seems to print the description, right? The War of Independence, the Holocaust, Jewish survival, founding the State of Israel. I want to point out that perhaps this Gemara is only talking about a one-time saying. When the Jewish people came out of the sea, they sang Shirah, and the rabbis instituted that you say Hallel every time you're saved. So maybe only in 48 we should have said it. Maybe only Tafshin Chet we should have said it, right? At the founding of the state. Maybe it's a one-time thing to say. Let's look in is there a source to say Hallel throughout the generations? So source 5 is going to help us understand. Yes, ma'am?
But they say Hanukkah, as an example. We say that ongoing.
That's true. That's true. Very good. It points out, it says, for example, Hanukkah, but it might be talking about the first year of Hanukkah. But you're right, it seems to be talking about Hanukkah, which is every year. The second source in source 5 seems to talk about every year same things. Let's look at it. This is a Gemara in Masechet Megillah. It's talking about the festival of Purim, and it's a great Gemara. It says like this: Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis talk. 48 nevi'im v'sheva nevi'ot nitnavu le'em Yisrael. There were 48 prophets and 7 female prophets who prophesied for the people of Israel. There were actually a lot more than that. The Gemara says that there were as many prophets in Israel, twice as many as the number of Jews who left Egypt. There were 600,000 Jews left Egypt, so at one point there were 1.2 million prophets in Israel. But we're talking about prophecies that was needed for all the generations. Prophecy that was needed just at the time. For example, people used to go to a prophet to talk about where their car keys were lost. Right? How do we know that? So it says it in the Torah, right? When Shmuel lost the donkey, when Shaul lost his father's donkey, he wanted to know where the donkeys were. So he said, let's go to the prophet Shmuel and we'll ask him. So people, you lost your car keys, you go to the prophet now. So those prophecies weren't written down forever. But in the prophecies we have that were written for generations, that is, that are found in the Torah, there are 48 male prophets and 7 female prophets. And they did not add or subtract any mitzvot from the Torah, except for one exception we're going to see in a minute. This is, in brackets, this is a statement that it seems to be a reaction, a little dig at, a conversation with Christianity. Their big claim is that their prophet, whoever, the big guy, got rid of the mitzvot. Right? I know if you've got Christian friends, but they don't keep the commandments. Right? Even though they believe in the Bible. So you say, why don't you do what it says in the Bible? So they say, oh, you don't have to do that anymore. So what happened? Well, they say that there was a divine revelation that you don't have to do that anymore. Comes along this Gemara and say, listen, we actually had 48 prophets, 7 prophetesses, and they didn't add or subtract anything from the Torah. Right? They did everything in the Torah. Except one thing. Chutz mi mikrad Megillah. They added one thing, which is to read the Megillah. My Darush. Where did they learn that from? Where did they figure that out? Amar Rabbi Chia Ba'avin, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Oma mi avdut lecherut, amrinan shira. They did a kavachome. They said, if from slavery to freedom we said a song, mimita l'chaim lo kol sheken, from the death decree to Savior, isn't it all the more so? When we were in Egypt, they didn't decree that we're going to die. In Egypt, we were slaves. And when we got out, we sang a song of praise to God. So therefore, if from slavery to freedom, you have to praise God, then from death sentence in the time of Haman, when the whole Jewish people were going to be destroyed, to being alive, isn't it all the more so? So the Gemara learns that that's where we learn it from. The Gemara asks a question then. Iachi, Hallel nami nema. If so, then we should say Hallel. Hey, when we got out of Egypt, we say Hallel on Pesach for getting out from slavery to freedom. You say that they added Purim, but we don't say Hallel on Purim. Right, on Purim we don't say Hallel. Except in my synagogue, where they always try to trick the chazan. And on the last Kaddish, just as the chazan is finishing Chazarat Hashatz, he goes, Yivarech Tamo Yisrael b'shalom. And the whole congregation, in order to trick the chazan, goes, b'shalom, which is the introductory Ashkenazi nigun to Baruch Atah Hallel. So he automatically starts Hallel, and then we're going, no, not, it's Purim. We don't say Hallel on Purim. Gotcha, right? And we have a lot of fun in our shul on Purim. That's really cool. But we don't say, so if you want to tell me that they added the festival of Purim because they made a kal v'chomer, if when we left Egypt we got from slavery to freedom, we make a holiday, so then when we come from death to life, all the more so. Well, if that's the kal v'chomer you're doing, so then why don't we say Hallel on Purim? Answers the Gemara, a few different answers. says, "Lefi she'eino Hallel al nesh b'chutzaretz." Sorry guys, we don't say Hallel on a miracle in Chutzaretz. Yep, that is, there's an intrinsic difference between the holiness of the land of Israel and the holiness in Chutzaretz. We don't say Hallel on
Wait a minute, Caesar's farm is also Chutzaretz.
You
And so is Kriyas Yamsu.
You are divinely inspired, or you've heard this Gemara before, because the Gemara says in the next line, Yatzeh Mitzrayim nes b'chutzaretz, hachi amin and shira, leaving Egypt and the splitting of the Red Sea was a miracle that occurred outside the land of Israel. And Egypt is outside the land of Israel. And we say a song on that. And second Tanya, like it's taught, Ad shelo nichnasu le'eretz Yisrael, until we came into the land of Israel, lo achshavu kol ha'aratzot. And sorry, I read it right. Ad shelo nichnasu le'eretz Yisrael, lo achshavu kol ha'aratzot l'moshira. Before we came into the land of Israel in the time of Yeshua, you could say Hallel on a miracle that occurred everywhere. But after we came into the land of Israel, all the other lands were not fitting to say Shiva. So, we say a song on the Savior for Kriyas Yam Suf, even though it was in Chutzaretz, because we hadn't come to Israel yet. So that's where the miracle occurred. We say Hallel on that. But after we've come into Eretz Yisrael, the head by Rishon, the first temple, and now we went back into Galut, now it's the time of Esther, we have a miracle there. The rabbis can fix a festival, Kal v'chomer, if from slavery to freedom, all the more so from life to death, but they won't say Hallel because we don't say Hallel on a miracle that occurred in Chutz La'aretz. That's what this Gemara says. There's another answer. Second answer, the Gemara says, Rav Nachman Amar, different answer. Kriyata zo hilela. What do you mean we don't say Hallel? We say Hallel. Reading the Megillah is Hallel. Reading the Megillah is the form of Hallel. There are different languages of Hallel. There's Hallel from Tehillim, and there's Hallel of reading the Megillah. So that's a nice,
So
different.
I was going to ask the question, I think Shul Yom is not Hallel.
Right, but we also say Hallel when we left Egypt. We also say on Seder night we
Well,
actually
we'll
say
say
Hallel.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a different. Now, based on him, you can say Hallel on a miracle that occurred in Chutz La'aretz. Next answer. Rava Amar, Bishlei Mahatam, Hallelu Avdei Hashem, Velo Avdei Paro. And Hacha, Hallelu Avdei Hashem, Velo Avdei Achashverosh, Akati Avdei Achashverosh. It's okay they say Hallel over there by Pesach, because in Hallel we say Hallelu Avdei Hashem. Because we left Egypt, we left the slavery of Pharaoh, and we became the slaves of Hashem. So that makes sense. But here on Purim, how can we say Hallel with the words Hallelu Avdei Hashem? What? We're slaves of Hashem and not slaves of Achashverosh anymore? No. We were still slaves of Achashverosh. I don't know if you know the end of the story of Purim, but we stayed there. Achashverosh is still the king. Mordechai becomes one of his ministers. Esther stays in the palace. And we're still in slavery under foreign rule. So therefore, even though there's a Kal v'chomer that if from slavery to freedom we say Hallel, all the more so from life to death, we should make a festival of Purim. But to say Hallel, it doesn't fit in with the words. How are you going to sit there and say Hallelu Avdei Hashem when you're not Avdei Hashem, you're Avdei Achashverosh? So we have three different answers why we don't say Hallel on Purim. One is we can't say Hallel on a festival in Chutz La'aretz after we've ever come to Israel. Number two is we do say Hallel, but we just say it in the form of the Megillah. And number three is that we can't say Hallel if we're still under foreign rule. Now, based on those answers, seems let's come to Yom Ha'Atzmaut. This seems to be a source for telling us that not only do you say Hallel when you're saved, but you say it every year. Because this is talking about saying Hallel at the festival of Purim every year. So let's think about, do we have a Kal v'chomer here? So there are many rabbis who write that the establishing the state of Israel was a Kal v'chomer. If from slavery to freedom, all the more so from the Holocaust, the War of Independence, what was happening to a state of Israel that survived and exists. That's from life to death. So herefore we have a Gemara that says you should be saying Hallel on that every year. Let's see if anyone takes it that far though. Let's see if it actually works like that. There's a Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvot who believes that saying Hallel is a rabbinic decree. Look in the Rambam in Sefer Mitzvot, in source 6. The Rambam in his book of Mitzvot writes, Hashor Sharishon she'enu really not klal hazeh mitzvot she'en midrabanan. Maybe a bit of an introduction. The Rambam wrote a classic work, the Mishnah Torah, the Yad Chazakah, the 14 books of the codification of all Jewish law. A classic. He realized that in order for that book to be accepted, he would have to write a first book that was a list of what he thought the mitzvot were. Because you can't have a codex that says there are so many laws about Shabbos and so many do's and so many don'ts if you haven't established how many laws of Shabbat there are. So we have a Gemara that says there are 613 mitzvot, and he wrote a book summarizing the 613 mitzvot. Now, he wasn't the first rabbi to do that. One of the great early rabbis, one of the Gaonim, the Bahag, Baal Halachic Kedolot, rabbi who lived generations before the Rambam in the Gaonim period, he wrote a book of the 613 mitzvot. We're very thankful that he wrote that because that gave the Rambam something to argue with. And the Rambam Sefer Mitzvot is basically an argument between him and the Bahag. The best part of the book is not the list of the 613 mitzvot, even though it's a great book and everyone should read it. I believe in Chabad they encourage people to read that every year, to go through the whole 613. It's a great book. People have summarized it. The Chofetz Chaim took it and he summarized it and wrote a list of, it's called the Concise Book of Mitzvot, of just the mitzvot of the 613 that you're able to do in our day and age. Unfortunately, it's much smaller. For example, you can't bring korbanot, right? It's a much smaller book, but it's called the Concise Bits of Mitzvot, and he believed that everyone should know all the mitzvot they can do in our day and age. The Feldheim prints it, and it's a small little book. It's worth buying, if only for one reason, that there's an addendum to the back of the book that lists mitzvot that we can do in our day and age after we've returned to the land of Israel that the Chofetz Chaim didn't get to do. And I like that book just because I see that we're on the move. Things are happening, right? That even just in that 100 years between the Chofetz Chaim, died in 1935, right in the 1930s, just in that 70, 80 years since the Chofetz Chaim to my day and age, we need to add extra pages to his book. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
Yeah, then it's really, it's nice. So next time you're in the Feldheim shop, the bookshop there, Concise Book of Mitzvot of the Chofetz Chaim, and look in the back, the addendum, and you'll see there are extra mitzvot. The Rambam wrote, before his book of mitzvot, the best part of the book is his rules for defining mitzvot. It's not as easy as you think. For example, build an ark. Is that one of the 613 or not?
No.
Well, the answer is not so simple. Why? Because if I'm quoting the verse to build the ark to put in the tabernacle, then the answer is yes. But if I'm quoting the verse of Noah to build an ark to put the animals in, the answer is no. Remove your shoes. When God said that to Moses, that doesn't count in the 613. But when God says to Moses, build a candelabrum, a menorah, that gets in. Why? How do you figure out which ones are in and which ones are out? It's really tricky, right? When God says to man, to first man, be fruitful and multiply, so you all know that that one got in there. But some of the things that God said to first man, don't eat from that tree, that didn't make it into the 613. So the Rambam writes a long, it's really big, a list of defining features. One of the things he argues with is the Sefer Bahag, the Baal Halachic Kedolot, this great rabbi who wrote a book before. The Baal Halachic Kedolot listed, for example, Hanukkah and Purim as part of the 613 mitzvot. And the Rambam thought that was absolutely crazy. Let's see why. Says the Rambam in source 6. Hashorish Rishon, the first rule I want to tell you about defining the 613 mitzvot is Sha'en Ra'uy not klal hazeh mitzvot she'en v'Rabbanan. You don't count rabbinic mitzvot. They're not part of the 613. Why? Ki ze'inyan lo haya ra'uy lo re'alav le'bora'o ki achar she'yah lashon atavod. I don't even need to clarify this matter for you. It seems so self-evident, he says. Why? Because the language of the Talmud is Sheish ma'ot v'shlosh esrei mitzvot ne'emru l'Moshe miSinai. 630 commandments were told to Moses on Har Sinai. How could you even think that Purim and Chanukah, which are rabbinic mitzvot, were told to Moses on Har Sinai? Doesn't work. So therefore he says, Aval ready alav minei she'ubo rabim. But I wrote this as the first rule because many people were mistaken in this rule. Umanu bo Chanukah, umikra megillah, b'chlal mitzvot asay. And they counted Chanukah, he's talking about his great rabbi before him. They counted those. They included the fact that there's a mitzvah to say 100 blessings every day. They counted visiting the sick and all these other mitzvot. And you see what I've underlined, V'shmonasrei yom ligmor behem Hallel. And they counted the 18 days that we say Hallel, which are the days of Sukkot and the days of Pesach and Shavuot, and they counted, and Chanukah. And they counted those days, and that's not true, says Rambam, that's all rabbinic. Now, why is that interesting to us? The Rambam here is very clear. Hallel is rabbinic. But not everyone thinks like that. There's a responsa of the Chatam Sofer. The Chatam Sofer, 1800s Europe, one of the greatest rabbis in Ashkenazi Jewry. He came from a town called Pressburg. Pressburg, he was rabbi in Pressburg. In Pressburg, there was supposed to be a pogrom. And for some reason, the Goyim called it off. There was bad weather or something like that. A strike or something. Anyway, they didn't do the pogrom. So the Jewish people established a festival to thank Hashem for the fact that there wasn't a pogrom in Pressburg on the day there was supposed to be a pogrom in Pressburg. You lived in Pressburg in that time, that's a pretty big thing. Got saved from the pogrom. No, it didn't even occur. So the Chatam Sofer lived in Pressburg, and then he moved away, so that he wrote extensively about this festival. They called it Purim de Pressburg, right? They created their own festival. So he wrote extensively about, is that on all the Pressburgers, or is it only on the people who are now in Pressburg, or if you were born in Pressburg and then you moved to Warsaw? Right? He discussed this issue at length. And this responser of his defines for us the mitzvah of saying Hallel in a completely different way than what we've thought about until now. Let's learn and then we'll see how it applies to Yom Ha'atzmaut. Kfar harachti yoter midai. I've already written too much, I have to finish now. This is in the beginning, in the middle of the responsa. V'lesayem b'nechama omer, and I'll finish with some nice words of comfort. And I'll say, Mashkav ta'ad, kivut yom moed, yom asiyat nes, that fixing a festival day on the day that a miracle happened to you, hu kal v'chomer doraita. They're the words you need to take photos of. There's a concept in halacha called a kal v'chomer doraita. Kal v'chomer, we all know. The way you say kal v'chomer is like this. Kal v'chomer, all the more so. What's a kal v'chomer doraita? Kal v'chomer doraita means that there's a all the more so logic that is based on Torah verses and Torah obligations and not rabbinic. Let's see what he says. He says, Kal v'chomer doraita. Ulefi anutati, v'lefi ze, Yom Purim v'yemei Chanukah, doraita he. Purim and Chanukah, in my opinion, are doraita. Why? Ach ma la'asot behem, but what you do on those days, im la'asot manot or la'adlik nerot, to send portions or to light candles, or la'asot zecher acher, or any other memory, zeh d'Rabbanan, that's rabbinic. V'oveh ve'eno oseh shum zecher yemei Chanukah. And if you didn't do any memory on Chanukah or Purim, Oveh al mitzvat asay d'oraita, you broke a Torah prohibition. Ach oseh shum zecher, but if you did something, yeh mashiyeh, even the smallest thing, al kol panim b'yom achad miyemei Chanukah, on one day of Chanukah, afilu lo idlik nerot, even if you didn't light candles, you just, I don't know, spun the dreidel, you did something for Chanukah, you celebrated Chanukah in some way, even if you didn't light candles, v'lo shalach manot b'Purim, you didn't send portions on Purim, then you're only rabbinic. In other words, the essence of the festival is doraita. What you do on the festival is dorabanan. So you didn't celebrate Hanukkah, you blew a doraita. You celebrated Hanukkah, but you didn't do the rabbinic mitzvah of lighting candles. You blew out D'Rabbanan. So how did he get this? He says, Efshar kriyat Hallel or Megillah have kal v'chomer d'oraita. But it's possible that reading Hallel and reading the Megillah are also d'oraita. How do we get that? Lomar shira, to say a song of praise. Just like on Pesach, we're commanded to tell the wonders of leaving of Egypt in your mouth, prepare. Hachinami mimavet l'chaim. Here too, from death to life. Chayav lomar shira b'peh. You've got to say a praise of God in your mouth. Dafka. Where did we learn? We learned in source 5, the Gemara in the second Megillah, that there's a kal v'chomer. When we left Egypt, we went from slavery to freedom. And we said a song of praise. We said Hallel. The Gemara learned from that. Kal v'chomer, all the more so when you come from death to life. That's a kal v'chomer d'oraita. That is, the Torah obligates you to sing a praise when you go from slavery to freedom. And we know that kal v'chomer is one of the 13 principles of hermeneutic exegesis. Right, that are listed in the beginning of the Siddur, that there are ways, principles of how to learn Torah. The Torah says thou shalt not kill. So how do you know you can't do mass murder? Kal v'chomer, right? If you can't do one, you can't do all. So if the Torah says you have to sing praises from slavery to freedom, all the more so from death to life. So Purim and Hanukkah, singing, not just celebrating the day, singing Hallel on them according to that is d'oraita. Wow! That's amazing. Right? It's amazing. Now he says, he goes on to say, V'im kein haya yutzdak katzat divrei bahag. And therefore now we can say, explain a little bit the words of the rabbi, the Rambam, I with the Baal Halachot Kedolot. Remember I told you he wrote a book of the 613 mitzvot and he included Purim and Hanukkah. And what did the Rambam say about that? Doesn't even start because it said 613 mitzvot were told to Moses on Har Sinai. God did not say on Har Sinai, Purim and Hanukkah. What are we going to answer back from the Bahag? God said on Har Sinai, whenever you have freedom from slavery to freedom, you need to sing praises. And God told Moses on Har Sinai, here is the 13 hermeneutical principles of exegesis, kal v'chomer. So Moshe Rabbeinu now has a limud d'oraita that whenever we're in a situation of death to life, we have a Torah mitzvah to have a festival and sing Hallel. Psh. But he got it a little bit wrong. Shirichu ba'Rambam u'b'Sharim b'Sefer HaMitzvot. Ela al kol panim lo haya lo limnot mitzvat ha'Sefer B'fnei Atzmo. He shouldn't have counted each one as a separate mitzvah. Kevan shu kalul b'klal sipur yetzim mitzvah. Because that's all considered in the mitzvah of telling the mitzvah of leaving Egypt. Right? So he said he got the numbers wrong, but the idea is good. Okay, so here we have the Chatam Sofer believed that when a miracle occurs to you and you're saved from death to life, like the pogroms in Pressburg, that you have a Torah obligation to make a festival and to sing Hallel. That it's the right. Now let's come to Yom Ha'Atzmaut. So that seems to, according to the Chatam Sofer, to fit into that really, really well. But it seems that we would say it. The Meiri, one of the early Rishonim, writes in verse 8 in Pesachim, Kol yachid she'reita tzara v'nigla imenu. Every individual who was in strife and was redeemed from the strife, Rashai likboa Hallel la'atzmo. He's allowed to fix Hallel to himself. B'oto yom b'kol shana, on that day every year. Ela she'eno mevorech alav, but you don't say a blessing. V'kein adin b'kol tzibur v'tzibur, and so true with every community. V'kein haya yisod ha'neviim lo'omra al kol tzara v'tzara she'nigelam mimenu. Because that's what we saw in the Gemara Pesachim, that the early rabbis fitted for us that we should say Hallel on every pain that occurs to us that we're saved from. The Meiri says that every individual, and not only every individual, every community is allowed to fix festivals on the day. Now we know that the people have done this throughout Jewish history. We did it on Purim, we did it on Hanukkah. We did it throughout Jewish history on great days. For example, Chabad has a festival on the day that the rabbi got out of jail. I think Yud Tet Kislev, the 19th of Kislev. They don't say Hallel with a bracha, but they certainly party it up. They certainly praise God and they tell the story of it. Individual people have done this throughout Jewish history also. Communities. The Ben Ish Chai writes about a community that he praises that there was, they got saved from a big attack, from a big fire, and every year they would have a big festival. My wife's family, descendants of the Tosfot Yontef, Rav Lippman Heller, who was in Europe 300 years ago, there was a libel against him, and he was accused in his book of bad-mouthing the king and Christianity. He was originally decreed that he would be killed for that. They worked very hard and managed to get the death penalty suspended, and in place of that, he had to give off all his money. The community had to pay a lot of money. He was forbidden from being a rabbi. He had to go into exile, and only years and years later did he manage to get back at the end of his life becoming a rabbi in Europe again. His descendants, 300 years later, to this day, my wife's family, every year on the 5th of Tammuz there's a fast, and on the first Rosh Chodesh Adar, they have a party. A fast on the day that it was decreed. Is anyone here descendants of Tosfot Yontif? I always meet people who are descendants, and they still do their party today. In other words, they're based on this Me'iri, an individual community or an individual who has a miracle occurred to them. We have a Gemara Pesachim which said that the early rabbis, the prophets, decreed that we wrote Hallel for you for every time you say it. But until now, it's without a bracha. This Me'iri says without a bracha. Yes, ma'am?
Did he write a sefer on the structure of the Beis Hamikdash?
That's
Am I
part of
getting
his
that
book.
mixed up?
Yes, he wrote that. He wrote
There's
three
somebody
versions.
carrying his name that I met in the store.
Good.
Momish the same names, and it was amazing to hear.
Okay. Not everyone that would leave us with Hallel and Yom Ha'Atzmaut without a bracha. But there's a source that perhaps we could say with a bracha. Look at source 9. Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah b'shem Rabbeinu Tam. They're quoting this in the name, the students of Rabbeinu Yonah Migrandi is quoting Rabbeinu Tam, one of the famous Rabbeinu Tam, the Balei Tosfot. Sheikah Hallel nitkan al kol tzara shelo tavo kol Yisrael. Why did the Meiri say that we only say Hallel without a bracha? Because the essence of the Gemara is that the rabbis decreed that something that happens to the whole of the people of Israel. Not to an individual or community, not just to Presburg, but to the whole of the people of Israel. VaKodesh Baruch Hu asa ilehem nes, and God did a miracle to them, just like when we left Egypt. Hayu omrim Hallel, then you say Hallel. V'chayavim levarech al kriyato, and in that case you say a bracha. When it's just for an individual community or not the whole of the Jewish people, then you say Hallel without a bracha. Because the original decree of the prophets was that when it happens to Israel, that is the entire people of Israel, Afapi shelo hayu gomrim oto, v'itak v'nadivim lo hayata ela al nes shasa lekol Yisrael. Aval b'nes shasa liyichid lo titnu lema Hallel. U'ma she'amru yichid lo yatchil, רוצה לומר שנעשה נס שלא בכנופיה של כל ישראל לא יתחיל לברך Hallel. When the Gemara says that an individual shouldn't say Hallel, it means if an individual had a miracle happen to him, he shouldn't say Hallel with a bracha. But if you have the whole of the Jewish people all together, then you say. So those who want to say Hallel on Yom Ha'Atzmaut, they have to understand that the establishment of the State of Israel was a miracle for the whole of the Jewish people. Now, it's not such a hashkafic, it's not such an ideological leap to say that. Us people in Chutz La'aretz certainly know that the establishment of the State of Israel changed the reality of the Jewish people in the whole world. My parents and my parents-in-law, who remember, they were young children and teenagers when they remember the establishment of the State of Israel. And my father-in-law often says to me, you don't know what it's like to live in a world without the State of Israel. to live in a world without the State of Israel is a different reality. Even if you still live in Australia or America or South Africa, the difference between a Jew living in those places today to a Jew living before the State of Israel is a completely different reality. We know that unfortunately in many places in the world it's not doesn't look so good for the Jewish people at the moment. Anti-Semitism seems to be on the rise and it's not so good. And we pray that God should protect all the Jewish people. But the fact that there's a State of Israel, that every single Jew, I meet a lot of Jews from Chutz La'aretz. If anyone, know anyone, a Jew who lives in France today? Mm-hmm. You meet any Jews who live in France? Every one of them, religious, secular, every one of them, in the back of their mind, they've got the plan when they're coming to Israel. All of them. They're all thinking in the back of their mind, well, if I need to, if things get worse, if this happens, I'll come to Israel. That changes the reality of Jewish people everywhere in the world. So that seems that we've got a source for saying it with a bracha. But we have a question. Does this apply today? Does this apply in our day and age? That question is dependent on how you think this decree works. When the first prophets instituted the Jewish people say Hallel, when they're saved as a nation, they say it with a bracha according to Tosfot, and if it's not as a whole nation, they say it as individuals without a bracha. Is that something that needs a Sanhedrin to put it in place? So there are two different ways of looking at it. The Khatam Sofer understood it as follows, that the first rabbis, these Nevi'im, they were part of the Sanhedrin, and they made a decree. Whenever this situation occurs, you are fulfilling conditions A, B, C. Now the decree that we made as a Sanhedrin comes into force. In other words, you don't need a new decree. The decree was made. The decree was whenever the Jewish people are in strife and they get saved, you say Hallel. All you've got to do is just realize are you in that reality or not. But there are rabbis who read it differently, and they understand to mean the rabbis instituted that whenever you're in this situation, a Sanhedrin will be able to look at that situation and decree to say Hallel. In which case you couldn't do it today because you need a Sanhedrin. That's a bit of an argument amongst the rabbis, but the first reading we had seems to be of some importance and a correct way to read it. So, at the founding of the State of Israel, this question was addressed to many, many great rabbis. One of the greatest of those rabbis was Rav Sperling, who had survived the Holocaust, came to Israel, Kol Nevaser. He was really, really big. He was one of the great rabbanim of the generation. And he wrote a long responsa, and he believed that you should say Hallel with a bracha on Yom Ha'Atzmaut. There were other rabbis who believed that you should say Hallel without a bracha. For example, Rav Avadia Yosef believes you should say Hallel but without a bracha. The chief rabbinate kind of like didn't really make up its mind about this question, and some chief rabbis would say Hallel with a bracha, and some would say without, and some said today the chief rabbinate rules that everyone should follow their own tradition. So not many people have a tradition, right? In Yeshivat America, so in Rav Maimon's synagogue, which is at the entrance to Jerusalem, Rav Maimon was the rabbi who at the founding of the State of Israel, he was the one who stood up and said the bracha Shechianu with a bracha, and Ben Gurion, everyone put their kippahs on. So in his synagogue, they used to say Hallel with a bracha every year. In Yeshivat Merkaz Rav, the Rav Tzvi said, no, we say Hallel without a bracha because we follow the rulings of the chief rabbinate and we want to be part of the people. So different synagogues do different things. As I said, it doesn't make you more of a Zionist or less than a Zionist. Let's look at some of the claims of some people who say that you shouldn't be saying Hallel. The first claim is that it was just the beginning of a war. How can you say Hallel? It was just the beginning. It was the day that they declared the War of Independence, and between you and me, I don't know if you noticed, it hasn't finished. Right? We're still, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook in Merkaz Rav, they noticed that after Shachrit he would say certain Tehillim. So they asked him, why do you say those Tehillim? He said, well, the Rabbanut said at the War of Independence that we should say these Tehillim. They said that was a long time ago. He said, I didn't notice that it finished, right? No, the War of Independence. What's the claim against it? Who says that you need to have a complete victory over everything, that everything has to be 100%? Maybe just the fact that we were enough to establish the state of Israel, and that the state of Israel was established is enough, that is a savior. And that's certainly how we feel ourselves, that the establishment of the state of Israel, with all the problems, with all the wars, and with all the terrors, this is a miraculous thing that itself is good enough in and of itself. If we look, we can find a little bit of support from that. Well, maybe I'll just ask, the next issue that people raise is, come on, you're saying Hallel on a secular state? Come on. Now, if the state, if the prime minister and the president, if they all had long beards and big kippah, then we could say Hallel, but it's Hallel on a secular state. So those two claims, the war hasn't finished, we need to have complete victory, and the state isn't an ideal messianic state, they seem to have some justification. Let's look at the Rambam in the laws of Hanukkah. Now, I'll just remind you, we do say Hallel on Hanukkah. The Rambam explains why we say Hallel on Hanukkah. When I was in kindergarten, they always told me we say Hallel on Hanukkah because there was a miracle of the oil that was supposed to last for one day, at least for 8 days. The Rambam mentions that, but that's not the main reason he says we say Hallel. That's the second reason. Look in the Rambam, in source 10. The Rambam in the laws of Hanukkah said, in the time of the Second Temple, the Greeks made all these decrees on the Jewish people, but they cancelled their religion, and they didn't let us deal with Torah mitzvot. And they put their hands to our money and to our daughters. And they went into the temple, and they broke down the walls, and they made all the pure things impure. And we were very in a bad place from them. And they put pressure on us, until the God of our forefathers had mercy on us, and he redeemed us from their hand, and he saved us, and the Chashmonaim, the high priests, got the upper hand, and they killed the Greeks, and they saved the Jewish people from the hands of the Greeks, Here's the words, they established a king from the Kohanim, which the Rambam, by the way, he thinks was a big sin. They established a king from the Kohanim, and the independence, the kingship, returned to the Jewish people for more than 200 years until the end of the Second Temple. And then he says, and there's another reason, which is the miracle of the oil. And because of this, the rabbis instituted that in every generation, we should celebrate for 8 days, and we say Hallel. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit of real history. The Rambam says we say Hallel because independence was returned to the Jewish people for more than 200 years. But less than 70 of those years was that government religious. For most of those 200 years, the government was anti-religious. It was really bad. Nonetheless, the Rambam says that Jewish independence, even of a secular nation for 200 years, is the reason for Hanukkah. So that seems to say that even though, in the time of the Second Temple, we only had religious full independence for a very short time, the Rambam says that we say Hallel not on that very short time, we say Hallel on the whole 200 years of Jewish independence, even though it wasn't full independence and it certainly wasn't religious independence. So that seems to, today the situation is much better. The Israeli government, by the way, is the major, when we think of people who support Torah learning in the world, so there are some big families who give a lot of money to Torah in the world, the Israeli government gives more. The Israeli government builds more mikvahs, more synagogues, more yeshivot. The Israeli government does more to support Torah than any other donor. Maybe There's another reason maybe you don't want to say Hallel. Maybe you don't want to say Hallel because we're not really independent. We have to do what America says. That claim also doesn't seem to be such a good claim because the measure of independence is measured by what every other nation defines itself as independence. And so it's true that we have to listen to the United Nations, we have to listen to America, but so does France, so does England, so does Australia. Everyone has to listen to those guys, and if you don't, you get kicked out of the family of nations, and it's really bad for you. So that doesn't seem to be any less independence of what we're talking about. The major claim of people who see the state of Israel as something to thank Hashem for, but nonetheless don't say Hallel, is because of a saying of the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish in Bnei Brak died in the 1950s after the founding of the state of Israel. He believed that religiously, we're not on the religious level to establish new festivals. He also believed that we can't create a Holocaust Memorial Day. He believed both for the good and for the bad, we are unable, we're not on the religious level to establish new commemoration of new days. There are several answers to that. One of the answers to that is that maybe we are on the level. Maybe you don't need a senator. Maybe we are on the level. But if you think we're not, we've just established that perhaps the foundation of celebrating this was established by the prophets. That we are not establishing a new day. We're just fulfilling the rules and the conditions. We're applying the festival that was established by the prophets who were certainly on that level. Let's summarize. It seems from the Gemara and from our sources that there's an obligation on a Jew and on the Jewish people to say thank you to the Holy and Blessed. When something as big as the establishment of the State of Israel, which is probably the greatest event that's occurred to the Jewish people since the destruction of the Second Temple, something so big, it's religiously inappropriate to ignore it and not to thank Hashem. It seems that an appropriate religious expression for thanking Hashem is to say Hallel. There is halachic discussion about whether you should do that with a blessing or without a blessing. And there seems to be three options for the people who want to say Hallel. Here in Nishmat, we say Hallel in the daytime with a blessing, full Hallel, and that's what I personally do. Then there are people who say either full or half Hallel, but without a blessing. And that seems to be very easy to do halachically, because after all, you're saying Tehillim. And then there are some rabbis who believe that you should do that without a blessing, but not say it straight after Shacharit as an interruption as part of the Shacharit morning service, but rather say it as Psalms when you finish Shacharit. And that's what Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, previous Sephardi chief, Hazatzal's previous Sephardi chief Rabbi of Israel used to do. And that's also an option. The main thing is that we should be filled in our hearts and our souls with the great wonder that Hashem did for us in our generation, that we're part of this, and that we should merit that the state of Israel should flower and flourish, and we should be a part of its continued growth up to and including the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, to a full redemption, that the Jewish people from all over the world should merit to come up to Zion and take part in the building with us, that our non-Jewish neighbors in the world should recognize the great light and goodness that the state of Israel wants to do for the world. They should take part and help us, take hands, and we'll all walk together to a wondrous holy future of the light of God being redeemed and revealed in the land of Israel.
Amen.
Amen.